The letter trembled in Julianna Hartley's gloved hands as she stood on the frozen platform of the Laredo, Texas train station, watching her breath form clouds in the January air of 1878, and she wondered if she had made the most foolish decision of her 22 years. The journey from Boston had taken nearly 2 weeks, and every mile had given her more time to doubt. She had answered the advertisement from Randall Griffin, a cattle rancher seeking a wife, out of desperation more than romance. Her father's death had left her penniless, and her only other option had been accepting the unwanted advances of Mr. Thaddeus Moore, a wealthy banker 3 times her age who had made it clear he expected more than companionship from a wife. So she had written to the stranger in Texas, and his letters had been kind, thoughtful even. He had described his ranch, his life, his hopes for a family. He had sent money for her passage and promised to meet her at the station wearing a brown hat with a silver band. But now, standing in this dusty frontier town so different from the cobblestone streets of Boston, Julianna felt her courage waver. The platform was nearly empty. A few men loaded cargo onto wagons, their breath steaming in the cold. January in Texas was nothing like the brutal winters back east, but there was still a bite to the air that made her pull her wool coat tighter. She scanned the area for anyone matching Randall's description, but saw no one. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The sun climbed higher but offered little warmth. Julianna's feet grew numb in her button-up boots, and doubt transformed into something closer to panic. Had he changed his mind? Had she traveled all this way only to be abandoned before they even met, Miss Hartley? She turned to find a tall man approaching, somewhere in his late 20s, with dark hair visible beneath a brown hat adorned with a silver band. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he was not smiling now. He looked worried. "Yes, I am Julianna Hartley," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Randall Griffin, madam. I apologize for being late. One of my horses threw a shoe on the way into town, and I had to walk her the last 2 miles to the livery." He removed his hat, revealing more of his face. He was handsome in a rugged way, nothing like the soft-handed gentleman of Boston. "I was afraid you might have given up and taken the next train back east." "The thought crossed my mind," Julianna admitted. Something flickered across his face, a flash of hurt quickly masked. "Well, I am glad you stayed. Let me get your trunk." He moved past her to collect her belongings, and she caught the scent of leather and horses and something earthy she could not quite name. He handled her heavy trunk as though it weighed nothing, loading it onto a wagon hitched to 2 sturdy horses. Then he helped her onto the bench seat, his hand strong and steady beneath her elbow. They rode in awkward silence through the streets of Laredo. The town was smaller than she had imagined, a collection of wooden buildings clustered along dirt roads. They passed a general store, a saloon, a church with a white steeple, and a handful of other establishments before leaving the town behind entirely. The landscape stretched before them, vast and open in a way that made Julianna's chest tighten. She was used to buildings and crowds, to the contained spaces of city life. Here, the land seemed to go on forever, brown grass and scattered mesquite trees beneath an enormous sky. "The ranch is about 8 miles out," Randall said, breaking the silence. "It is not much, but it is home." "I am sure it is fine," Julianna replied, though she was not sure of anything. He glanced at her. "You are cold. There is a blanket behind the seat." She retrieved it gratefully, wrapping it around her shoulders. The gesture was thoughtful, and she felt a small warmth that had nothing to do with the blanket. Perhaps this would not be so terrible after all. "I know this must be difficult," Randall said after another stretch of silence. "Leaving everything you knew to come to a place so different, I want you to know that I will do everything I can to make you comfortable, to make you happy if that is possible." "Why did you send for a bride?" Juliana asked. "Surely there are women here who would have married you." He was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the road ahead. "There are not many women out here, truth be told, and the few there are, well, I am not much for socializing. I spend most of my time working the ranch. It is a hard life, and I suppose most women want something easier." "Then why would you think I would want it?" "I did not think about what you would want," he admitted. "I thought about what I needed, a partner, someone to share the work and the life. That was selfish of me, I know." His honesty surprised her. "At least you are truthful about it." "I will always be truthful with you, Miss Hartley. That much I can promise." The ranch appeared in the distance, a collection of buildings nestled in a small valley. There was a house, barn, a few outbuildings, and corrals holding several horses. It was modest but well maintained, and Juliana felt some of her tension ease. She had half expected a ramshackle cabin barely fit for habitation. Randall helped her down from the wagon, and she stood looking at what was to be her new home. The house was single-story, built of wood with a covered porch across the front. Smoke curled from the chimney, suggesting warmth inside. "I lit the fire this morning before I left," Randall said, following her gaze. "The house should be warm by now." He carried her trunk inside, and Juliana followed. The interior was simple but clean. There was a main room with a fireplace, a small kitchen area, and two doors that presumably led to bedrooms. The furniture was basic but solid, clearly handmade. Everything was neat and organized in a way that suggested Randall took care with his belongings. "Your room is through that door," he said, nodding to the right. "I will sleep in the other. I want you to know that I will not press you for anything you are not ready to give. We are married in name only until you decide otherwise." Juliana felt her face heat. They had not even discussed the marriage ceremony yet, and he was already talking about sleeping arrangements. "When is the wedding to take place?" "I arranged for the preacher to come out tomorrow afternoon if that suits you. I thought you might want a day to settle in and rest from your journey." "Tomorrow is fine," she said, though her stomach knotted at the thought. Randall nodded. "I will leave you to get settled then. I have work to do in the barn, but I will be back in a few hours to fix supper." "You cook?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "When you live alone, you learn to do a lot of things. I am not fancy, but I can make a decent meal." After he left, Juliana explored her room. It was small but adequate, with a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. Someone, presumably Randall, had placed a vase of dried flowers on the dresser, a small touch that made her throat tighten unexpectedly. He was trying, she realized. In his own awkward way, he was trying to make her feel welcome. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her two good dresses in the small wardrobe and placing her personal items on the dresser. Her mother's silver brush and mirror set looked out of place in the rough surroundings, but she arranged them carefully anyway. They were all she had left of her former life. That night, Randall made good on his promise, preparing a simple meal of beef stew and biscuits. They ate in awkward silence, neither quite knowing what to say. Juliana wanted to ask him questions, to learn about this man she was about to marry, but exhaustion from the journey made her thoughts fuzzy. "You should rest," Randall said, clearing the dishes. "Tomorrow will be a long day." She nodded and retreated to her room, falling asleep almost as soon as her head touched the pillow. The next day dawned clear and cold. Juliana woke to find Randall already up and working outside. She dressed carefully in her best dress, a deep blue wool that brought out her eyes, and did her hair in a simple style. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a stranger staring back, a woman about to marry a man she had known for less than 24 hours. The preacher arrived at 2 in the afternoon. a jovial man named Reverend Hobbs, who seemed unsurprised by the hasty nature of the ceremony. He had clearly performed many such marriages before. The ceremony was brief and businesslike, conducted in the main room of the house with no witnesses beyond the Reverend himself. When Randall said, "I do," his voice was steady and sure. When it was Julianna's turn, she hesitated for just a moment before repeating the words that would bind her to this stranger. Randall placed a simple gold band on her finger, and then it was done. They were married. The Reverend accepted payment and a hot meal before departing, leaving them alone as husband and wife. The afternoon stretched awkwardly before them. Randall returned to his work, and Julianna explored the house more thoroughly, finding a well-stocked pantry and a small root cellar. She could do this, she told herself. She could build a life here. But as the days passed, doubt crept in like the winter cold that seeped through the walls at night. Randall was kind but distant, speaking to her only when necessary, spending his days working the ranch from dawn until well past dark. He kept his promise about not pressing her for intimacy, sleeping in his own room and treating her with careful politeness. But there was no warmth between them, no connection. They were strangers sharing a house, nothing more. 2 weeks after their wedding, a storm rolled in from the north, bringing with it bitter cold and sleet that turned the world gray and miserable. Julianna woke to find ice coating the windows and a chill in the air, despite the fire Randall had built before heading out to tend the animals. She dressed quickly, layering every warm garment she owned, and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Randall came in an hour later, his face red from cold, ice crystals clinging to his coat. "It is bad out there," he said, stripping off his gloves. "I got the animals secured, but we are in for a rough few days." Over the next week, the storm worsened. The temperature dropped until even the fire seemed to offer little warmth. Randall worked constantly, breaking ice in water troughs, ensuring the animals had food and shelter, checking fences and buildings for damage. Julianna did what she could inside, cooking, mending, trying to keep the house warm, but the isolation wore on her. Day after gray day with no one to talk to, nothing to see beyond the walls of the house but endless white. She missed Boston, missed her old life, missed having friends and conversation and purpose. Here she was just a burden, one more thing for Randall to worry about. One night, as they sat in silence after supper, she finally spoke the words that had been building inside her. "This is not working." Randall looked up from the harness he was mending. "What do you mean, this, us, this whole arrangement?" Julianna gestured around the room. "You do not need a wife, you need a housekeeper, and not even that really. You managed fine on your own before I came." "That is not true." "Then what am I here for, Randall? We barely speak. We live like strangers. I thought marriage would be more than this." He set down the harness, his expression troubled. "I know I am not good company. I have lived alone too long, I suppose. I do not know how to be different." "I am not asking you to be different. I am saying that I do not know if I can do this. I do not know if I belong here." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Randall was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough with emotion. "I knew you would have doubts. How could you not? I brought you to a hard place and expected you to make a life from nothing." He turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes she had not seen before: vulnerability, fear. "But I want you to stay. Not because I need a housekeeper or someone to cook my meals. Because in these few weeks, this house has felt like a home for the first time in years. Because I wake up in the morning and know there is someone here, and that makes the work lighter somehow. Because when I come in from the cold, I look forward to seeing your face." Julianna felt tears prick her eyes. "You never talk to me. You barely look at me." "I know. And that is my failing, not yours." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "The truth is, you scare me, Juliana. You are educated and refined from a world I do not understand. Every time I think about talking to you, I worry I will say something stupid or wrong. So I stay quiet instead, and I know that is worse. I am just a person," she said softly. "I am not some delicate thing that will break if you talk to me like a human being. I know that here," he tapped his head, "but not here." He placed his hand over his heart. "Will you give me another chance? Will you let me try to be the husband you deserve?" She wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe him, but the doubt that had been building for weeks was not so easily dismissed. "How do I know things will be different? How do I know you really mean it?" Randall stood and crossed to where she sat. He knelt before her, taking her cold hands in his calloused ones. "I will show you every day," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "Starting right now, ask me anything. Talk to me about whatever you want. I will listen and answer and do my best to be worthy of the chance you took on me." And so they talked. They sat by the fire as the storm raged outside, and for the first time, they really talked. Juliana told him about her life in Boston, about her father's slow decline after her mother's death, about the loneliness of those last years and the fear when she realized she had nowhere to go. Randall told her about growing up on his family's ranch in Kansas, about losing his parents to fever when he was 20, about coming to Texas to build something of his own. They talked until the fire burned low, and then Randall built it up again and they kept talking. He asked about the books she liked to read and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. She asked about the ranch, about his dreams for its future, and found herself drawn in by his quiet passion for the work. When they finally went to their separate beds, something had shifted between them. The wall of awkward silence had developed a crack. The next morning, Randall did something he had not done before. He asked Juliana to come with him while he fed the horses. She bundled up in every warm thing she owned and followed him to the barn. The horses were beautiful creatures, tall and strong, and she found herself drawn to a mare with a white blaze on her face. "That is Daisy," Randall said. "She is gentle as they come. Would you like to try brushing her?" He showed her how to hold the brush, how to move it along the horse's coat in smooth strokes. Daisy stood patiently, seeming to enjoy the attention. Juliana found the work soothing, the simple rhythm of the brush, the warmth of the barn, the quiet presence of the animals. "You are good with her," Randall observed. "Have you been around horses before?" "Not much. My father kept a carriage horse, but I never helped care for him. This is nice, though. I like it. Then come out with me every day if you want. I can teach you about the horses, about the ranch. It is your home now, too. You should know how it works." From that day forward, Randall kept his promise. Every morning he waited for her to dress and join him for the morning feeding. He taught her about the horses, showing her how to check their hooves, how to tell if they were healthy or ill. He pointed out the cattle in the distant pastures and explained his plans for the spring breeding season. In the afternoons, when the work was lighter, he came inside earlier and they cooked supper together. He taught her how to make the dishes he knew. Cowboy fare like beans and cornbread and beef, prepared a dozen different ways. She shared recipes from her Boston childhood, and they laughed together when attempts to recreate them with frontier ingredients did not quite work. In the evenings, they sat by the fire and talked. Sometimes they discussed practical things, plans for the ranch or needed repairs. Other times the conversations ranged wider. Randall asked her to read aloud from the book she had brought, and he listened with rapt attention as she worked through a volume of Dickens. She asked him to tell stories of his childhood and found herself captivated by tales of life on the Kansas plains. Slowly, carefully, they built something between them. Not love, not yet, but friendship. Trust. A foundation. The storm finally broke after 10 days, leaving the world coated in a thick layer of ice that glittered in the returning sunlight. Randall rode out to check the fences and returned looking troubled. "There is damage to the north pasture fence," he said. "Several posts down, wire snapped. I need to ride into town for supplies to fix it." "Can I come with you?" Julianna asked. The thought of a break from the isolation of the ranch was appealing. Randall hesitated. "The roads will be rough." "I do not mind. Please, Randall, I would like to see the town properly," he nodded. "All right, bundle up warm, it will be a cold ride." They set out an hour later, the wagon creaking over the frozen ruts in the road. The journey took longer than usual, but Julianna did not mind. The sun was shining, the air was crisp and clean, and she was simply glad to be out in the world again. Lerdo was busier than it had been the day she arrived. People moved along the wooden sidewalks, going about their business. Randall pulled the wagon up in front of the general store and helped her down. "I need to go to the feed and supply store for the fencing materials," he said. "Do you want to look around the general store while I do that?" She nodded, and he handed her a few bills. "Get whatever you need or want. I will come find you when I am finished." Inside the general store, Julianna browsed the shelves with interest. There were dry goods, fabric, tools, tinned foods, and 1,000 other items. She selected thread and needles, some sugar and coffee, and was examining a bolt of pretty calico when a woman's voice spoke behind her. "You must be Randall Griffin's new wife." Julianna turned to find a woman about her own age, with dark hair and bright eyes, smiling at her. "Yes, I am Julianna. Julianna Griffin, I suppose. Sarah Mitchell. My husband Tom and I have a ranch about 5 miles from yours. I have been hoping to meet you, but the storm kept everyone home." She gestured to the fabric. "That is a nice pattern, would make a lovely dress." "I was thinking curtains for the kitchen," Julianna admitted. "Everything is so bare." "Well, a woman needs to make a place her own. If you need help with sewing or anything else, please do not hesitate to call. It is good to have another woman nearby. There are not many of us out here." They talked for several minutes, and Julianna felt something loosen in her chest. A friend, or at least the possibility of one. Sarah was warm and open, sharing news about the other families in the area, inviting Julianna to a quilting circle that met once a month at the church. Randall found her there, deep in conversation with Sarah, and he seemed pleased to see her smiling and engaged. They loaded the wagon and headed home, and Julianna chattered about her new acquaintance, about the fabrics she had bought, about plans for the house. "I am glad you met Sarah," Randall said. "She is good people. Tom, too. It will be good for you to have friends." That night, after supper, Randall surprised her by producing a worn guitar from his bedroom. "I do not play much anymore," he said, looking almost embarrassed. "But you seemed happy today, and I thought maybe some music would be nice." He played simple songs, his fingers moving over the strings with more skill than he had implied. His voice was rough but pleasant as he sang old ballads and folk tunes. Julianna found herself swaying to the music, smiling, feeling more relaxed than she had in weeks. When he finished, she applauded. "That was wonderful. Why did you not tell me you could play?" he shrugged. "It did not seem important, but I want you to know all of me, Julianna. The parts I am proud of and the parts I am not. Will you play more often? If it makes you happy, I will play every night." As February arrived, bringing slightly warmer temperatures and the first hints of spring, Julianna found herself settling into the rhythm of ranch life. She helped Randall with the morning chores, spending time with the horses she had grown to love. She cleaned and organized the house, making it truly hers with curtains and small decorations. She baked bread and tended a small garden plot Randall had helped her prepare for spring planting. And every day, True to his word, Randall showed her that he valued her presence. He asked her opinion on ranch decisions. He brought her small gifts from town, a book of poetry, a packet of flower seeds, once a ribbon for her hair. He told her she was beautiful, that he was grateful for her, that his life was better with her in it. The walls between them continued to crumble. One morning, as they worked together in the barn, Julianna realized she was watching Randall with a new kind of interest. The way his muscles moved beneath his shirt as he lifted hay bales. The concentration on his face as he worked. The gentleness in his hands when he handled the horses. When he caught her looking, he smiled. "What is it?" "Nothing," she said, feeling her face heat. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how different this is from what I imagined. Better, I think." He crossed to her, leaving only a small space between them. "Better is good." "I will take better." "Randall," she said softly, "I think I am beginning to care for you, truly care, not just as a friend." His eyes widened slightly, and she saw hope flare in them. "I have cared for you since the first moment I saw you on that station platform," he said. "I have been waiting for you to feel even a fraction of what I feel, trying to be patient, trying to earn your trust." "You have," she said. "You have shown me every day, just as you promised." He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her cheek. His palm was warm and rough against her skin. "May I kiss you?" she nodded, her heart racing, and he leaned down to press his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle and sweet, full of restrained passion and tenderness. When they parted, Julianna felt breathless and warm despite the cool morning air. "I want to be your wife," she said. "Really your wife in every way. Are you sure? I do not want to rush you, I am sure." That night, when they retreated to their separate rooms as had become habit, Julianna stood at her door for a long moment before crossing the main room to knock softly on Randall's door. He opened it immediately, wearing only his trousers, his chest bare. In the lamplight, she could see the scars that marked his body, evidence of a hard life lived. "I do not want to sleep alone anymore," she said simply. He pulled her into the room and into his arms, kissing her with more passion than before. They made love slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies in the flickering lamplight. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Julianna felt more at home than she had anywhere in years. "I love you," Randall whispered against her hair. "I think I have loved you since you answered my first letter, but I was afraid to say it." "I love you too," she replied, and meant it with her whole heart. Spring arrived in earnest, bringing new life to the ranch. The cattle dropped calves, and Randall taught Julianna how to help with the more difficult births. The garden she had planted began to sprout, tender green shoots pushing through the dark soil. The days grew longer and warmer, and the world seemed full of possibility. In April, Sarah Mitchell invited them to Sunday dinner, and Julianna met more of their neighbors. Tom Mitchell was a broad, friendly man who welcomed them warmly. There were others, too. The Johnsons, who ran a neighboring ranch, the elderly Mr. Cooper, who raised sheep, the young Harrison family with their 3 small children. Julianna found herself laughing and talking easily, no longer the lonely city girl transplanted to the frontier, but a part of this community. "You look happy," Randall observed on the ride home. "I am happy, truly happy. I never thought I could love this life, but I do. I love the ranch, the people, this place." She looked at him. "Most of all, I love you." He reached over to take her hand. "You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. Before you came, I was just existing, getting through each day. Now I feel alive." In May, they attended the quilting circle Sarah had mentioned, held at the church in town. Julianna brought fabric and learned patterns from the other women, listening to their chatter and gossip, feeling welcomed and included. Afterward, She and Randall browsed the general store, and she noticed him looking at a carved wooden cradle. "That is a beautiful piece," she said. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "that maybe someday we might need something like that." She smiled and placed her hand on her still flat stomach. "Perhaps someday soon." His eyes widened. "Juliana, are you saying?" "I am not certain yet, but I think so. I wanted to wait a bit longer before telling you to be sure." He pulled her into his arms right there in the store, not caring who saw. "This is the best news, the very best." That night, they talked late into the evening about their hopes for the future. A family to fill the house with laughter. Expanding the ranch, building something to pass down to their children. Growing old together, watching sunsets from the porch they would someday add. "Remember when you doubted?" Randall said, holding her close. "That night you said you did not know if you belonged here. I remember. I was so unhappy, so lost. And I promised to show you every day that you did belong, that I wanted you here. I hope I have kept that promise." "You have," she assured him. "Every single day in 100 small ways. You have shown me I am loved and valued and needed. You have made me believe in us." "I will keep showing you," he said. "Every day for the rest of our lives." By June, there was no doubt. Juliana was pregnant, and the news spread through their small community with joy. Sarah came to visit with advice and hand-sewn baby clothes. The women at the quilting circle worked on a special quilt for the baby. Even the men congratulated Randall, slapping him on the back and offering their own words of wisdom about fatherhood. The summer was hot and long, but Juliana found she did not mind. She worked in her garden, harvesting vegetables and herbs. She helped Randall with the lighter ranch work, though he tried to get her to rest more. She sewed clothes for the baby, her hands creating tiny garments with love and hope stitched into every seam. In August, as her belly swelled and moving became more difficult, Randall hired a young man named Charlie to help with the heavier ranch work. Charlie was 17, eager and hardworking, and he took some of the burden off Randall so he could spend more time with Juliana. They made the cradle themselves, Randall cutting and sanding the wood while Juliana sewed a tiny mattress and blankets. It sat in the corner of their bedroom, waiting for the baby that would arrive in late winter. "Boy or girl?" Randall asked one evening, his hand on her belly. "I do not know. Either would be wonderful. A girl with your beauty and intelligence, a boy with your strength and kindness." He kissed her swollen belly. "Whoever they are, they will be loved beyond measure." Fall arrived with cooler temperatures and the hard work of preparing for winter. They harvested the last of the garden, storing vegetables in the root cellar. Randall and Charlie repaired buildings and fences, chopped wood for the winter, made sure everything was secure. Juliana preserved and canned, filling shelves with jars of food that would see them through the cold months. She was waddling now, her belly huge, and Randall fussed over her constantly. He helped her with tasks that had become difficult, brought her pillows to make sitting more comfortable, rubbed her aching back and swollen feet. His tenderness made her love him even more. "You do not have to do all this," she said one night as he massaged her feet. "I want to. You are carrying our child. It is the least I can do." In November, they celebrated their first anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. Randall gave her a necklace with a small golden locket, and inside he had placed a tiny picture of the two of them from their wedding day. "1 year ago, I was the luckiest man alive," he said, "and I did not even know how lucky I truly was. I doubted so much," she said softly. "I was so afraid I had made a mistake. And now I know this is exactly where I am meant to be. With you, building this life, I would not change a single thing." They kissed as the fire crackled in the hearth, and Juliana thought about that frightened girl who had stood on the train platform, just a year ago. She barely recognized her now. December brought cold weather and snow, though nothing like the terrible storm of the previous winter. Julianna's time was drawing near, and Sarah Mitchell came to stay at the ranch to help when the baby arrived. Randall grew increasingly nervous as the due date approached, checking on Julianna constantly, barely sleeping. "Babies come when they are ready," Sarah told him gently. "You have to be patient." On a cold January morning, 2 weeks after the new year of 1879, Julianna woke to pain. She gripped Randall's arm and he was instantly awake. "Is it time?" "I think so." Sarah took charge, sending Randall for the doctor in town while she helped Julianna prepare. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the day and into the night. Randall returned with Dr. Henderson, and the two men waited anxiously in the main room while Sarah and the doctor attended to Julianna. At just past midnight, the baby's first cry split the air. Randall burst into the room, his face white with worry, and found Julianna exhausted but smiling, a tiny bundle in her arms. "A boy," she said softly. "We have a son." Randall approached slowly as if in a dream and looked down at the tiny, red-faced infant. "He is perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." They named him Robert James Griffin, and Randall took to fatherhood with the same dedication he brought to everything. He helped with the night feedings, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with the baby when he cried. He sang to his son in that rough, gentle voice, old ballads and lullabies he remembered from his own childhood. Julianna watched him with their baby and felt her heart swell with love. This man who had seemed so rough and distant when they first met had proven to be tender and caring beyond her wildest dreams. Every day, he showed her and their son that they were cherished. Spring came again, and with it new life. The cattle had another successful calving season. The garden was planted with new varieties of seeds. And Robert grew, becoming more alert and responsive, smiling at his parents and gripping their fingers with surprising strength. Sarah Mitchell had her own baby in April, a daughter named Elizabeth, and the two women grew even closer, sharing the joys and challenges of new motherhood. The quilting circles became chances to show off the babies and compare notes while skilled hands worked on new projects. The ranch prospered. Randall and Charlie worked hard, and that fall they were able to buy additional cattle to expand the herd. They built a new barn, larger and sturdier than the old one. Randall talked about hiring another hand come spring, about his dreams of making the ranch into something truly substantial. "I want to build something lasting," he told Julianna as they sat on the porch one evening, watching the sunset while Robert slept in her arms. "Something Robert can inherit and his children after him, a legacy." "You have already built something lasting," Julianna said. "A family. A home filled with love. That is a legacy worth having." He pulled her close, careful of the sleeping baby. "I never thought I could be this happy. There were times before you came when I wondered if this life was worth living. Working alone, sleeping alone, no one to talk to or share with. Then you stepped off that train, looking scared and brave at the same time, and everything changed. I was so frightened," she admitted, "of you, of this place, of making such a huge mistake. I am glad I stayed long enough to see who you really were. I am glad you gave me the chance to show you. Every day, I try to live up to what you deserve. You do more than that. You give me everything I could ever want." As the months passed, Robert grew from an infant into a lively baby, crawling everywhere and getting into everything. Randall built a playpen to keep him safe and fashioned small wooden toys that Robert loved. In the evenings, they would sit together as a family, Randall playing his guitar while Julianna sang and Robert clapped his chubby hands. By the time Robert's first birthday arrived in January of 1880, The ranch was thriving, and so was their family. They celebrated with Sarah and Tom Mitchell and their daughter, and several other families from the community. The house was full of laughter and conversation, so different from the silent, empty place it had been just 2 years before. That night, after the guests had gone and Robert was asleep, Julianna and Randall sat together on their bed, tired but happy. 2 years, Julianna said. Has it really been only 2 years? Feels like forever, Randall said, in the best possible way, like you have always been here. Sometimes I think about that winter when I doubted, when I told you it was not working and I did not know if I belonged. That was my fault. I was so caught up in my own fear and inadequacy that I forgot to let you see the real me. But you changed. You kept your promise. You showed me, every single day, that you loved me and wanted me here. He cupped her face in his hands. And I will keep showing you, Julianna. For the rest of my life. Every single day I will make sure you know how much you mean to me. She kissed him deeply. I never doubt anymore. This is my home. You are my home. This life we have built together is everything I could have dreamed of and more. In the spring of 1880, they learned Julianna was pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and she worked alongside Randall through the summer, managing the house and helping with the lighter ranch work while Charlie handled the heavier tasks. Their daughter, Rose Catherine Griffin, was born in November, a tiny thing with her mother's delicate features and her father's dark hair. Robert, nearly 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her constantly with gentle, curious hands. 2 children, Randall said, holding his daughter while Robert climbed onto his lap. We are truly blessed. Room for more? Julianna asked with a smile. As many as you want. We will fill this house with children and laughter and love. The years flowed by in a pattern of seasons and growth. The ranch continued to prosper, and Randall hired 2 more hands to help with the work. They expanded the house, adding 2 more bedrooms and a proper parlor. The barn Charlie helped build was replaced with an even larger one as the herd grew. In 1882, Julianna gave birth to twin boys, Samuel and Henry, and the house erupted into joyful chaos. Sarah Mitchell, who now had 3 children of her own, came to help, and the 2 women managed the demands of multiple babies through teamwork and laughter. Randall proved to be as devoted to his growing family as he had been to Julianna from the start. He made time for each child, playing with them, teaching them, showing them the same patient kindness he had shown their mother. He taught Robert to ride when the boy turned 5, carefully leading the pony around the corral while Julianna watched with her heart in her throat. He helped Rose learn her letters, sitting with her for hours while she practiced writing her name. He walked the floor with the twins when they were teething, singing lullabies in the middle of the night so Julianna could rest. You are an amazing father, Julianna told him one evening, watching him juggle a twin on each knee while Rose and Robert played at his feet. I had a good example, he said. My own father was patient and kind. I try to be the same. You succeed. Our children adore you. Not as much as I adore them, or their mother. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters and dry summers. Cattle died, fences broke, equipment needed repair. There were illnesses that kept them up at night and moments of fear when a fever spiked or an injury occurred. But through it all, Randall and Julianna faced each challenge together, their partnership growing stronger with each passing year. In 1885, when their eldest son Robert was 6 years old, Julianna found herself pregnant once more. This time, the pregnancy was difficult from the start. She was often ill and exhausted, and Randall worried constantly. Maybe this should be our last, he said gently. I do not want to risk your health. Let us see how this one goes, she replied. But yes, I think 5 children might be enough for anyone. Their last child, a daughter they named Grace Eleanor, was born in early 1886 and proved to be worth the difficult pregnancy. She was a happy, sunny baby who rarely cried and smiled at everyone. "Our family is complete," Randall said, holding Grace while their other 4 children clustered around to look at their new sister. 5 healthy children, a thriving ranch, and the most wonderful wife a man could ask for. What more could I possibly need? As the children grew, so did the ranch's reputation. Randall became known throughout the region as a fair man who treated his employees well and produced quality cattle. Buyers came from as far as San Antonio to purchase his stock. The money they earned was invested back into the ranch and saved for their children's futures. Julianna became a respected member of the community as well. She helped organize church functions, taught Sunday school, and was always the first to arrive when a neighbor needed help. The friendships she had formed with Sarah Mitchell and the other ranch wives deepened over the years, providing a network of support and companionship. By 1890, Robert was 11 and already helping his father with serious ranch work. Rose, at 9, was learning to cook and sew from her mother while also revealing a gift for training horses. The twins, now 8, were inseparable and into everything. And Grace, at 4, was the darling of the family, adored by her siblings and parents alike. One evening, as Randall and Julianna sat on the porch they had finally built, watching their children play in the yard, he took her hand. "Do you remember what you said to me that night, that winter when you doubted? I remember every word. I told you it was not working, that we were just strangers. And I promised to show you every day that you belonged here, that I wanted you, that this could work. You have kept that promise," she said softly. "Every single day for 12 years, you have shown me I am loved. You have never let me doubt again. 12 years ago, I was a lonely man living a half-life, wondering if this was all there was. Then you came and everything changed. You gave me a family, a real home, a reason to work hard and dream big. You gave me everything, Julianna." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "We gave each other everything. This life we have built together, it is more than I ever imagined possible. When I stepped off that train in Lerdo, I was so scared. I thought I had made the worst mistake of my life. And now I know it was the best decision I ever made. Coming here, giving you a chance, giving us a chance. I would do it all again in a heartbeat." He kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Julianna Griffin, more today than yesterday, and not nearly as much as I will tomorrow." "That is quite a promise." "I will show you every day," he said, echoing his words from that winter night so long ago, "for the rest of my life." The years continued to pass in the gentle rhythm of ranch life. The children grew, each developing their own personalities and dreams. Robert proved to have his father's skill with horses and cattle, naturally taking to ranch management. By the time he was 15, he was handling responsibilities that would have overwhelmed many grown men. Rose surprised them by declaring she wanted to be a teacher. Julianna taught her everything she could, and when Rose was 16, they sent her to school in San Antonio to complete her education. It was hard having her gone, but she came home for holidays with tales of the wider world that fascinated her younger siblings. The twins, Samuel and Henry, were as different as 2 boys could be despite sharing a face. Samuel loved working with tools and machinery, spending hours in the workshop Randall had built, fixing equipment and inventing improvements. Henry preferred working with the animals, showing a particular gift for treating sick or injured creatures. Grace grew into a beautiful girl with her mother's grace and her father's determination. She loved helping in the garden and had a talent for making things grow. The vegetable garden expanded under her care, and she began experimenting with flowers, bringing color and beauty to the ranch house. In 1895, when Julianna was 39 years old and Randall was 44, they celebrated their 17th anniversary. The children, now ranging in age from 9 to 16, surprised them with a party inviting friends and neighbors to celebrate. 17 years, Sarah Mitchell said, pulling Julianna aside. I remember when you first came to town. You looked so lost and scared. I was terrified, Julianna admitted. I had no idea what I was getting into. And now look at you. 5 beautiful children, a prosperous ranch, a husband who clearly adores you. You have built something remarkable. We built it together, Julianna said, looking across the room at Randall, who was talking with Tom Mitchell and some of the other ranchers. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up and smiled at her, that warm smile that still made her heart skip a beat. Every day, we build it together. That night, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, Randall and Julianna walked together in the moonlight, as they often did on warm evenings. The ranch spread around them, buildings and corrals and pastures, all the evidence of their years of hard work. Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life, Julianna said. That scared girl from Boston seems like a completely different person. She was brave, Randall said, braver than she knew. It takes courage to leave everything you know and start over. I did not feel brave. I felt desperate and afraid. But you came anyway. You gave me a chance. You gave us a chance. And when you doubted, you were honest about it instead of running away. Because you made me feel safe enough to be honest. You listened to my fears, and instead of dismissing them, you worked to ease them. He stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. The moonlight silvered his hair, which had begun to gray at the temples. Lines marked his face, evidence of years spent in the sun and wind, but to Julianna, he had never been more handsome. I promised you that winter night that I would show you every day, he said. And I have tried to keep that promise, but the truth is, you have shown me just as much. You have shown me what love really means, what family means, what it is to build a life with someone who knows all your faults and loves you anyway. You have very few faults, she said with a smile. I have plenty. I am stubborn and proud and sometimes too focused on work. But you have been patient with me, gentle with my rough edges, and you have made me a better man. We have made each other better. That is what love does. They kissed in the moonlight, as in love as they had been on their wedding night, perhaps more so. The passion of new romance had mellowed into something deeper and more enduring, a love tested by time and hardship and found unshakable. As the new century approached, their lives continued to evolve. Robert, now 19, took on more and more of the ranch management, allowing Randall to slow down slightly. He married a girl from town named Ellen, and they moved into a small house Randall built on the far side of the ranch property. A year later, they gave Randall and Julianna their first grandchild, a boy named after his grandfather. Rose returned from San Antonio with her teaching certificate and took a position at the Lerdo School. She lived in town during the week, but came home on weekends, bringing books and news from the wider world. The twins, now 17, were preparing to go off on their own paths. Samuel had been accepted into an engineering program in Austin, while Henry was apprenticing with the veterinarian in Lerdo. Grace, at 13, was still at home, but already showing signs of the independent woman she would become. She talked about starting a flower nursery, selling plants and seeds to other ranchers and townspeople. They are all leaving, Julianna said one evening, a touch of sadness in her voice. Our babies are growing up and leaving. That is what we raised them to do, Randall reminded her gently. to be independent and capable, to make their own way in the world. I know, and I am proud of them. It is just hard to let go." He pulled her close. "We are not losing them. They will always be our children, always be part of this family. We are just making room for the next chapter." The next chapter of what? Of us. We started this journey together, just the two of us. We built a family, raised children, created a legacy. Now we get to return to being just us again, at least for a while, and I am looking forward to it. She looked up at him in surprise. "Really? Really?" "I love our children more than life itself. But I also love having you to myself. Walking together in the evenings without interruption. Talking late into the night without listening for a baby's cry. Taking the time to really be together, not just managing the chaos of family life." "When did you become such a romantic?" "The day I married you," he said simply. "You have always brought out the best in me." The turn of the century in 1900 was celebrated with a big gathering at the ranch. All 5 children were home, along with Robert's wife and baby. Sarah and Tom Mitchell were there with their grown children. Dozens of friends and neighbors filled the house and spilled out onto the porch and yard. As midnight approached, Randall raised his glass for a toast. "To the new century," he said, "and to the people who make life worth living. My beautiful wife, who took a chance on a lonely cowboy 22 years ago and gave me everything I could ever want. Our children, who make us proud every day. Our friends, who have become family. Here is to the past which shaped us and to the future which awaits." Glasses clinked and cheers rose into the night sky. Julianna stood beside her husband, surrounded by the family and community they had built together, and felt perfectly content. This life, which had started with so much doubt and fear, had become more wonderful than she could have dreamed. Later, after the last guests had departed and the children were settled in their old rooms for the night, Randall and Julianna stood together on the porch, looking out at the ranch bathed in starlight. 22 years, Julianna said softly. "It seems impossible that it has been so long." "The best 22 years of my life," Randall replied, "and hopefully we have 22 more ahead of us. At least, I plan to grow old with you, Randall Griffin, very old. Good, because I am not finished showing you every day how much I love you." "I need at least another 22 years for that," she laughed. "Only 22? Make it 50 then. However long we have, it will not be enough." They stood together in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. A horse nickered softly in the barn. Crickets sang in the grass. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled at the moon. "You ever think about that first winter?" Julianna asked. "When I was so unhappy, I think about it often," Randall admitted. "It was the closest I ever came to losing you, and that terrifies me even now." "You were never going to lose me. Even then, even when I was doubting everything, some part of me knew you were a good man. I just needed you to show me. And I did. And I will keep showing you every day for the rest of my life. That is my promise to you, Julianna. It was my promise 22 years ago, and it remains my promise today. I will show you every day that you are loved, that you are valued, that choosing me in this life was the right decision." She turned to face him, placing her hand on his weathered cheek. "You have already proven it beyond any doubt. I have never once regretted coming here, not once in all these years. You have given me a life more wonderful than I could have imagined. A home, a family, love that fills every corner of my heart. You have shown me what it means to truly be cherished." He kissed her palm. "Then we have both been lucky beyond measure, because you have given me all the same things. You took a lonely house and made it a home. You took a solitary man and gave him a family. You took a half-lived life and made it full and rich and meaningful. Everything I am, everything I have, I owe to you." "We owe it to each other," she corrected gently. "That is what marriage is, what love is. Not one person giving and the other receiving, but both giving, both receiving, both working together to build something neither could create alone. The years continued to unfold with gentle inevitability. The children married and had children of their own. The ranch was eventually divided among them, each taking a section to manage. Robert ran the main house and the bulk of the cattle operation. Rose married the new doctor in Laredo and continued teaching while raising 3 children. Samuel opened a machine shop in town that became essential to all the ranchers in the area. Henry established a successful veterinary practice. Grace started her nursery and made it profitable beyond anyone's expectations. Randall and Julianna, now grandparents many times over, settled into a comfortable routine in the original ranch house. They kept a small garden and a few horses, but the hard work was done by younger hands. They spent their days reading, walking, tending the garden, and enjoying visits from their ever-expanding family. On a cool evening in October of 1910, they celebrated their 32nd anniversary with a small gathering of just their children and grandchildren. Randall was now 59, his hair completely silver, his hands gnarled from years of hard work. Julianna was 54, her dark hair streaked with gray, her face lined but still beautiful. After dinner, their oldest grandson, young Randall, now 10 years old, asked them to tell the story of how they met. "It is not very exciting," Julianna said with a smile. "Please," the boy insisted. "I want to hear it." So Randall and Julianna told the story together, trading off parts. The advertisement in the Boston newspaper, the exchange of letters, the long train journey west, the awkward meeting at the station, the difficult first weeks, the terrible winter storm. And then grandmother told grandfather she did not think it was working, Julianna said, reaching the crucial moment in the story. "I was so unhappy, so full of doubt. I did not know if I could make a life here." "What did you say, grandfather?" young Randall asked. Randall looked at his wife, his eyes warm with love. "I told her I would show her every day, that I would prove to her that she belonged here, that I wanted her, that we could build something good together. And did you?" "I tried. Every day I tried to show her through my actions, through my words, through every choice I made, that she was loved and valued." "And it worked," Julianna added. "Little by little, day by day, your grandfather proved his love. He showed me I had made the right choice. He gave me a reason to stay, and then another and another, until I could not imagine being anywhere else." The children and grandchildren listened raptly, and when the story was finished, there were tears in several eyes. "That is the most romantic thing I have ever heard," Rose's eldest daughter said. "It is a true story," Randall said. "The truest story I know. Love is not just words or grand gestures. It is showing up every day. It is keeping your promises. It is choosing someone again and again, in 1,000 small moments." Late that night, after everyone had gone home, Randall and Julianna lay in bed together in the room they had shared for over 30 years. "We have told that story so many times," Julianna said, "but I never tire of it." "Neither do I, because it is our story, the story of how we found each other and built this life." "You really did show me every day," she said softly. "For 32 years you have proven your love over and over. Through the good times and the hard times, through raising children and building a ranch, through everything, you have been constant." "It was easy," he said. "Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done. I do not think I ever properly thanked you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me that winter. When I was so full of doubt and fear, when I told you it was not working. You could have let me go, sent me back to Boston, but you did not. You fought for us. You promised to show me every day, and you kept that promise." He pulled her closer. "I could never have let you go, Even then, when we barely knew each other, I knew you were meant to be mine. I would have done anything to make you stay. I am glad you did. I am glad you kept your promise. Because this life, this family, everything we have built, it has been the greatest joy of my life. Mine too, he whispered. Every single day with you has been a gift. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, as they had done for more than 3 decades, as they would continue to do for the years remaining to them. The remaining years of their lives were peaceful and full. They watched their grandchildren grow, helped when needed, but mostly enjoying the freedom to simply be together. They took walks every evening when the weather permitted, talking about everything and nothing. They read books aloud to each other, as they had done since those early days when Julianna first read Dickens to Randall by the fire. They tended their garden and fed the horses and welcomed the constant stream of family visitors who brought news and laughter into their home. Randall's health began to fail when he was 65. Nothing dramatic, just the slow wearing down that comes with age and a lifetime of hard physical work. His joints ached, his breathing was sometimes labored, he tired more easily. But he never complained, and he never stopped doing the small things that showed Julianna his love. A cup of coffee brought to her in the morning, wildflowers picked on his walks and left on her pillow, her hand held as they sat together in the evening. "You do not have to keep proving it," she told him one day. "I know you love me. I have never doubted it, not in over 30 years. I will show you every day," he said, as he always did. "That is my promise, and I will keep it until I take my last breath." On a warm spring morning in 1918, Randall Griffin died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 67. Julianna woke to find him gone, his hand still clasped in hers, a peaceful expression on his weathered face. The grief was overwhelming, a physical pain that made it hard to breathe. For 40 years, they had been partners in everything. She had never faced a single day without him since that winter morning in 1878 when he had met her at the train station. How was she supposed to go on alone? But she was not alone. Their 5 children gathered around her, along with their spouses and children, and even a few great-grandchildren. The house was filled with family, with love, with the legacy she and Randall had built together. At the funeral, held at the church in Lerdo where they had attended services for decades, the pews were packed with friends and neighbors. Person after person stood to speak about Randall, about his integrity, his kindness, his fairness, his love for his family. But it was Robert, their eldest, who spoke the words that mattered most to Julianna. "My father was a man of few words," Robert said, "but he was a man of action. He showed his love through what he did, not just what he said. He worked hard to provide for us. He was patient when we made mistakes. He taught us by example how to be good people. But most of all, he loved our mother. Every single day of their marriage, he showed her that she was treasured. He kept his promise to her, the promise he made on a cold winter night 40 years ago to show her every day that he loved her. And he did. He never stopped. Even in these last years when his health was failing, he found ways to show her. That is his greatest legacy. Not the ranch or the money or any material thing, but the example of constant, faithful, enduring love. Julianna sat in the front pew, surrounded by her children, and wept for the man who had been her partner, her love, her life for 40 years. But even through the grief, she felt gratitude. Gratitude for the chance she had taken. Gratitude for the life they had built. Gratitude for every single day they had been given together. She lived for another 8 years, surrounded by family, watching her grandchildren and great-grandchildren grow. She told them stories about their grandfather, about the ranch in its early days, about the life she and Randall had built. She made sure they understood what real love looked like, what it meant to commit to someone and show up every day. On a quiet morning in August of 1926, Julianna Hartley Griffin died peacefully at the age of 70. Her children found her in the chair on the porch, the chair where she and Randall had sat together so many evenings, looking out at the ranch they had built together. In her lap was the locket Randall had given her on their first anniversary, still holding the tiny picture of them on their wedding day. They buried her next to Randall in the cemetery in Lerdo, under a live oak tree. The headstone was simple, bearing both their names and a single line that Robert insisted upon. They showed each other every day. The ranch continued to thrive under their children and grandchildren, a lasting legacy of the love and dedication Randall and Julianna had poured into it. But more than land or cattle or buildings, their real legacy was the example they had set. An example of taking a chance on love, of working through doubt and fear, of keeping promises, of showing up day after day and proving through actions what words alone could never convey. Generations later, their descendants still told the story of the mail-order bride who doubted in winter, and the cowboy who proved his love and said, "I will show you every day." It became a family legend, a reminder that true love is not about grand gestures or dramatic moments, but about the quiet, constant, daily choice to honor and cherish the person you have committed to. And in that small ranch house in Lerdo, Texas, where it all began, you could almost feel their presence on quiet evenings. The echo of laughter, the whisper of old conversations, the ghost of a promise kept for 40 years and then beyond, into eternity. The love story of Randall and Julianna Griffin became more than just their story. It became a testament to the power of choosing love, day after day, through doubt and difficulty, through joy and sorrow, through the ordinary moments that make up a life. They had taken a desperate beginning and transformed it into something beautiful and lasting. They had proven that love is not just a feeling but an action, a choice, a promise renewed with each sunrise, and that, in the end, was the truest romance of all.